it's like heads, the thinkers versus the hands who do things, right? There's a couple of different ways you can look at it. But ultimately, it's really important to kind of break your marketing into those two chunks, right? It's like, do I have somebody that's looking at this from a big picture strategic navigation standpoint? Like I'm in New York and I want to get to LA. That's like the macro goal, right? And the hands are like, how do I actually get there? Which is what we were just talking about. There's so many ways to get there.
Here we go. Make sure that you are starting to follow these live streams because we've been having a lot of good ones. I'm having a lot of fun trying out StreamYard on my own here in 2025. We've got an incredible show today as we're going across to Canada to sit down with Rita Barry. Rita, thank you for joining the show.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm grateful to be here all the way from Canada. It's cold up here.
What's cold today? How cold is cold?
It is minus 30 today, but I'm afraid that is perpetuating a whole bunch of stereotypes. That's Celsius, of course, but I think actually they come together when it's that cold. I think they actually start to be the same temperature. Normally we'd be like minus 10, which I think is what, 20s, something like that. So we're extra cold today. So
oh my goodness. I mean, I'm over here complaining. I'm originally from New York, moved to Florida in 2009, and we're probably Central Florida, maybe like 65 or 70, and I'm not happy with that. So I give you credit. Are you a Buffalo Bills fan being up there as well? Do you follow football?
No, we have Canadian football. I'm not like we're hockey people. We're not we're not even really Canadian football people. We are hockey people. So even though we know the Super Bowl's happening, we'll watch it. Like maybe we'll have people over, but it's just more for the spectacle than it is the actual football.
So who's the hockey team then?
So the hockey team would be the Winnipeg Jets, originally from Manitoba, just north of North Dakota, and grew up there. And then I moved out west to Alberta and into the mountains many moons ago. But Winnipeg is still our team.
Well, I'm a diehard New York Jets fan, so we have that commonality. Of course, mine gives me a lot more pain than yours probably. But
just right now. Normally they're awful, but this year they're doing amazing. So we're just going to enjoy it while it lasts.
Hey, take it for what it is. But everyone, it's not a sports show. This is That Entrepreneur Show. I was left for dead at 21 years old, retransformed my life and became a podcaster. That's my story. Today, we're learning Rita's story, and she's got so much to offer. I want to show her some love right away. She's the founder of a company that had over 86 million in ad spend with their client relationships of over 5 years. So incredible accomplishment. Helped countless female-founded businesses scale through strategy-first marketing and a data-driven approach to customer acquisition. I can't wait to find out what led you to become an entrepreneur. But first, I've got to thank everyone for tuning in, viewing on, whether it's live or when the show comes out. This is That Entrepreneur Show, and thank you for helping make this show a top 2.5% global podcast. I have an incredible time hosting this over the 5+ years, and today will be an incredible show. We are brought to you today by johnford.com. He has a new empathy card set with his empathy app in the App Store, and Coming Alive Podcast Production.com. But we start at the beginning, Rita. I like to run the show in phases. What happened in the beginning, what's happening right now, what's next? So let's go back. What led you to become an entrepreneur? And then what led you to this business particularly?
This is the only business I've ever had. It's kind of evolved over the last 15 years. I started it in 2009. It was actually really just out of boredom. I was staying at home with my 2-year-old at the time. She's now in university, so it feels like a really long time. And I previously had a career in social services. My husband got his dream job working for the Canadian National Police Force. And so we moved out here where I am now, and just was still, looking for a job. Do I want to go into social services? Kind of that, we had like that in-between period. And I just got really bored. And I started, the internet was all about like the blogosphere back then, if anyone was online extensively back in 2008-9. And taught myself to code, learn JavaScript, HTML. I have a strong science math background as a caveat, because that sounds a little crazy, I know. And so I taught myself to do that just based on like opening up websites, digging around. There wasn't a ton of online learning resources like there are now, but just did the best I could. Started designing websites, locally, a little bit, then got connected to other people. And it grew from web design into analytics and like digital marketing analytics, because that's what I'd actually gone to university for, with statistics and things like that. So kind of rolled that skill set in to entrepreneurship. And that is a very unusual skill set, I think still to this day, actually, for women in digital marketing. And so that really, I think that was the beginning of kind of the snowball for me, because web design wasn't like totally self-taught, had a lot of imposter syndrome around that in particular, because there were so many people that were so much better. And then once I kind of got into my lane with the digital analytics, that's when things really took off, was able to kind of like create an agency out of it. And then we started doing digital advertising in a really data-driven way, which also very unusual, not just going on vibes. And it's kind of grown from there. So it's been paying attention to what clients need and then making adjustments as we go. But it's kind of always been in that digital marketing world.
She talked about seeking feedback from clients, and I absolutely love that, seeing what they need, how to service them best. But you also learned how to do something so effectively, and that's trust your gut. When your gut is off, there's a problem. Let's dive into that.
So in that piece, it was I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background, right? Like I didn't know anybody. I didn't know there was actually like things like business, masters of business. I mean, I knew they existed, but I didn't know anybody who actually like would create a really solid business plan. I didn't come from that. And so I just had to really pay attention to like what I felt like I was good at, what clients were reflecting back to me. And so for the longest time, and still to a large degree, that's what I do, is like based on relational feedback from my client group, because we don't have any kind of like big leverage products. We are a very traditional agency with clients, and we provide services, so much relational stuff. And a lot of relationships is based on perceived feedback, right, that you're getting from other people through all of the communication. So that is so much of how I've grown the business. And because guts can sometimes be a little bit off, especially if it's the first time you're doing something, you don't have a lot of experience to relay back to, then I just always have made sure that there are people that are further along that path than me that I can talk to, check in with, and they have saved me from some egregious decisions in the business over the years. So a combination of those two is like following because, I was in social services for nearly a decade. I'm really good at reading people and empathy and human interaction. But also there's a lot of technical stuff that, kind of had to get married from the data side of me. And sometimes, sounding boards are really helpful with that.
I love how you just highlighted being resilient, right? I know you especially have this great insight on resilience to failure, resilience to not giving up. I'd love to talk about that a little more too.
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that I don't know how, I'm sure this is pretty common to a lot of people, but I, grew up in the system of, you go to school, you do well, there's right answers, there's wrong answers, there are right careers and wrong careers, right? Originally, I'd want to be a surgeon. So that was, and came from like quite low levels of poverty, like single mom, social assistance, all the things, and realized early on that doing things like the right way, quote unquote, in school was a path to getting out of that. Right. So the whole childhood and young adulthood was all about right answers. And what isn't in the entrepreneurial handbook, right, especially when you have no experience with it, is that entrepreneurship is all about failing all the time and doing it fast and not getting stuck. And that was incredibly challenging for me, because I do not come from a place scholastically where failure is an option, because the stakes were so high for me. Or my perceived stakes were so high. So entrepreneurship has been like therapy in action every day, right? Where you're like, I have to fail and I have to be okay with it. I have to learn how to absorb that guilt and process it and not get stuck by it. And that was not what I expected at all, but it's been probably the best gift that entrepreneurship has given me, because obviously that transcends to so many different parts of your life.
I love everything you said there. Is there a particular failure or lesson learned that you've had throughout your experiences that you don't mind sharing, so we could pay it forward to our community?
So like failures, I would guess like everything from like putting a funnel together and it not working, right?
Yep.
And from which happens all the time, by the way, for us, for clients, right? It will never be as bad as the moment that you release it, because it will always get better from there. Taking on bad clients, right? Like, and especially against your own, not bad clients, but not right fit clients.
Sure.
for us, and knowing ahead of time, like actually having a discussion a month later where you've had to let this client go, and your team members are like, you said they weren't a good fit. We're like, yeah, and that costs so much money and time and like morale sometimes, right? Like depending on what happens. So done that, right? Like introduce services that were not a good idea, right? Like low cost services. One of my mentors actually talked me out of that, from like creating like kind of a lower tier type service to offer. That didn't go very well,
Right.
because none of our clients were interested in that, because all of our clients are interested in really high, done for you complete service type things. Doing traffic marketing when I'm a relationship marketing business, right? Lots.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I know it's hard to find your perfect marketing strategy. You just talked about a few areas inside
Mhm.
marketing that you should pay attention to. Everyone, she's given
Mhm.
you a cheat sheet. But if we're going to create our perfect strategy, more generalized, of course, we don't know what each listener is looking for and what
Mhm.
have you. What are some things that should just be in there as non-negotiables?
So the place that I would start, is actually like, or what problem are you actually solving? And so I think that is the best question to spend a bit of time actually understanding, because something as simple and benign as someone saying, I want to increase sales, can be done in infinite amount of ways. And so to actually create a proper marketing strategy, you actually have to be solving the right problems. And I've seen countless clients, friends, all the things, right, get really far down the road of solving the wrong problem. And it doesn't matter how good you are at solving the wrong problem, you're still not going to solve the right one. And so that's the biggest piece, is like actually coming at the problem with a variety of perspectives. If anyone is interested in like mental models and has ever done any work, like actually learning mental models about how you can approach problems from different perspectives, it's an excellent thing to invest your time and energy into learning, because it helps you solve better problems. Because the thing that we have seen now after, and I think we're somewhere like 150 million actually worth of spend now, on platforms, is that I've seen so many different businesses and had the privilege of being behind the scenes of some, 50, 60, $70 million a year businesses.
Amazing.
They all market in a different way, right? In a way that kind of like serves their particular business, the vibes of that particular owner, the
Mhm.
strengths of that particular business as well. Like the vast majority of tactics that live out in the internet work, right? It just have to be applied at the right place and the right time. And so often people don't spend nearly the amount of time that they need to actually deciding which tactics to deploy, because truly, I have seen them all work, from webinars to no webinars to live webinars to, every, like they literally can all work, and they often all work in different, together in different ways in different businesses. But spending some time to know, like, what do I actually need to do in this business? What are my goals right now? What needs attention will serve people far better than just going like, what's the tactic I should do? Like, should I be learning TikTok, and short form video? It's like, well, who knows? You need to know what problem you're solving, and then you can actually deploy the right tactic and be married to the goal, not the path and how you get there.
What advice that is. And I think that's right there with entrepreneurship. You can have your big goals, but you got to be flexible on how you're going to get there, because she touched on it very well before. There's a lot of failures in this game. You'll fail every step of the way. I mean, I bring this up from time to time. This show, especially if you go back to episode 1 or even 50, how terrible I think I sound, right? I leave them up for inspiration and motivation, and also a reminder to myself that good things are going to take time. I was a guy that had a book and a bad experience, but there's a lot of people like that. So I had to get creative, start a show, never listened to another podcast beforehand, failed for 2.5 years. So that's what motivated me to write. I want to start a podcast and do Pod O'Clock, the other show, because if I could save you those 2.5 years where I was really, really bad, I've got a lot of
Mhm.
learning lessons to pay. So I love your humility there as well. Thank you for sharing that. Um, navigating the marketing drivers. Now, this is a part of the strategy, of course, but I know that when you're the one driving, you're often blinded by your own light, or at least that's how it is for me. Are there things that, again, more generalized, we can be looking for?
So for sure, I think the easiest way to think about it, right, is like the way that I like to look at it is that there's drivers and then there's navigators.
Sure.
And so often, especially if you're a very small business, if it's just you, or if there really is no other marketing support in the business,
Mhm.
which usually even exists, when people if you do have a couple team members around, is that you need to be both
Yeah.
the person who navigates and actually sees the big picture, and you need to be the person who drives. right? And so that means it's like heads, the thinkers versus the hands who do things, right? There's a couple of different ways you can look at it, but ultimately it's really important to kind of break your marketing into those two chunks, right? It's like, do I have somebody that's looking at this from a big picture strategic navigation standpoint? Like I'm in New York and I want to get to LA. That's like the macro goal, right? And the hands are like, how do I actually get there? Which is what we were just talking about. There's so many ways to get there. And separating out those two pieces is really important because it is so easy, right, to just live in your business, drive around all the time, and then you end up right in like goodness knows Texas. All of like will challenge my American geography, but you'll end up totally where you don't want to go because you're like head down driving and you really don't take time to stand up and look. And the thing that I found so interesting over the years about the strategy is that it feels really ambiguous. It feels really like hard. So people don't want to do kind of that navigation time. But it really takes so little time when you actually like sit down. Even half an hour, even an hour is like just, it's going to save you so much time in the long run. So it's really just about doing it the first time and realizing this doesn't need to be hard. What are the questions I need to ask myself? And then get to the work of making it happen.
You've been giving a lot of value, and we're circling back to the contact info at the end, everyone. So stay patient. We're almost there. But who would you say your target customer is? Of course, your target client. Who can you add the most value to? It sounds like you can add value to a lot of people. But if you had to narrow it down a bit, who do you like to serve the most?
So we serve primarily female entrepreneurs kind of in the info education online like coaching consultant space. Those are our people. And and usually people that get the most value out of our service really have an established business. And they're at that place where usually the entrepreneur has been driving the marketing because they've had to, right? Like they've just bootstrapped it up to where it's been. So often 1 million, 3 million in that range where they've got a lot of success and proven track record, but the entrepreneur just is kind of done with the marketing piece. They need more insight, more alternatives and experience to come in and really help drive their team better, and also add a lot more marketing channels and things of that nature, which you often don't need until you're kind of at that size.
I love that. Well, as you're getting to that size yourself, do you see yourself staying solely focusing on this? Do you already have another baby you're working on, or what's
Another
next for you?
entrepreneurial baby? Yes.
Yeah, you seem very ambitious, so I had to not assume ignorantly, but I think you might have something good in the works.
I really like helping like entrepreneurial women make tons of money. I said if we like try to help people have private jet problems, is kind of the goal that gets us up every morning. So we've gone from just doing Facebook ads to now we do like fractional CMO services and really
Interesting.
help complement what is going on within the business. Like we fill the gaps that people have because, as you know, direct response copywriting, Facebook ad people, Google ad people can be hard to find. And so sometimes at those business sizes, they'll have some of those people on their teams, but they don't have a full complement of them. And they often are missing a really strategic minded navigator person, right? Like that fractional CMO role. So we come in and we kind of fill in all of those places. So potentially some like marketing assistance, right? Like some targeted masterminds for the right people where we're actually going to be working through marketing strategy quarterly with people in a more leveraged way, but still small groups is kind of where I think I'm going to go next because I see it as such a gap for folks. So that's the idea, baby, is kind of doing that, but still services. I love humans and being up close to success and failure and all of those things. I really enjoy that human interaction part. So I don't foresee that going away anytime soon.
I love the vision. I love the ambition again, where you've got the plan for the marketing and you're now doing the CMO services, the events. So that's really exciting. But now that one curveball we discussed, which entrepreneur throughout history, dead or alive, would you choose to sit down with?
Gosh, it's always like, I think some of the female ones there's a female that was a Black entrepreneur who would actually go down in the South, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head. And she would actually go and was like selling hair products and different, like those are the stories that I find so much more interesting, because when there's actually like a diversity that lives in there, and not, I mean, obviously like read the jobs biographies and like all of, because I mean that's just interesting, right?
Yeah.
And Nike and all the things, but truly there's such a shortage of business books and memoirs written by women, which are, it's really unfortunate. So you kind of have to hunt for them, but they're fascinating. And it's like when you have everything against you and you still figure it out, solve the problems, and it's just you have different struggles, right? Like there's just a lot of different things that people come up to. So yeah, it's more of those, and you have to hunt for them, but they're worth reading because I find, they have similar, raising families and having the business, right, and being a primary caregiver and things like that. There's just different nuances to female entrepreneurial stories that I get a lot out of because I, see myself in a lot of that.
I love it. Now, what everybody's been waiting for. Where can we find you online, socials, website, whatever you've got going on? And backtrack quick. You mentioned a few books that are out there in that sphere. It's time for someone to put that book out there. I think this is your friendly push to get that book going.
Right. Yes, no, absolutely. I do have some friends that are writing some great books too. So I think we're starting to see that a lot more. But you can find me at ritabarry.co, and the Barrys Barry.
Yep.
And I'm not on social a ton, which is funny because people are like, but you're a marketing company. I'm like, we do relationship marketing. So I do a lot more of individual talks with people, networking, masterminding, things of that nature. And so the website's the best place to find me. We have a marketing quiz there. If you are like, where do I even start with marketing strategy? You can find that from the website as well. And that can help give you a really detailed assessment, and that's totally free. So people can do that as well.
All right, everyone, be sure to go check out all she has to offer online. This is That Entrepreneur Show. Be sure to subscribe to stick around for the next episode. But today, we got a really great one. Be sure to head to her website, see all the things she could do for you. And we are That Entrepreneur Show. I am Vincent A. Lancy. With that, we're about to sign off here. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.